All right, everyone. So this week we continue to delve into the tools of Marxist analysis that we are using to beginning to read culture, in particular the production and reproduction of culture and its relation to modern media. I want to begin with a definition of ideology provided by Karl Marx, whom we have started analyzing yesterday. So he writes, the ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. The class which has the means of material production at its disposal has control at the same time over the means of mental production. So for Marx, the function of ideology is ultimately the continual reproduction of the means of production and thereby to ensure the dominance of the ruling class. Thus, ideology makes appear the division between capitalists and the industrial proletariat as natural rather than the outcome of artificial and historical relations of power. And this leads the subordinate classes, according to Marx, to accept their alienated condition. Alienation is, as we've seen, a key concept in Marxian analysis, against which they would otherwise revolt. That is why ideology is ultimately, for Marx, a form of false consciousness. Now, when Marx was writing about ideology, he had before his eyes the mass industrial proletariat that was forming the first modern industrial working class that was forming in the United Kingdom. His prediction was that this industrial base of workers was going to expand and expand and grow and eventually would have overcome the bourgeoisie. But this is not the way things went in the 20th century. We faced a continuous growth and differentiation of the capitalist economy, which led to the expansion of the service sector and the middle class. So, an important Marxist theory of the first part of the 20th century, Antonio Gramsci, introduces the notion of hegemony to account for this complexification, if you want, of class relations, right? For this internal differentiation of economic classes within the capitalist economy. So he introduced the notion of hegemony to refer to a provisional alliance between different class sectors, which contributes to shape consensus for the dominant class. So, in a certain sense, he's updating the notion of ideology. Hegemony is thus for Gramsci a moving equilibrium, a contested terrain within which and against which a limited critique of the dominant consensus can emerge. For example, you might think about hip-hop music, the more political hip-hop music, as being counter-hegemonic, as Gramsci would say, alternative media, the use of social media for political action and political critique. These are all examples of counter-hegemonic practices. Gramsci also says that what hegemony does is basically to shape common sense assumptions, which ultimately work in favor of the dominant classes. Stuart Hall, an important, very important key Marxist thinker of the second part of the 20th century, whom we will be studying more in detail next week, adds that the media, the mainstream media, in particular is thinking about television here, are one of the main sites in which these common sense assumptions are circulated. We might think here about the stereotype of the happy white middle class family that we have seen in so many television sitcoms. Common sense is therefore difficult to detect because we are always immersed in it. We're always part of common sense and we contribute to reproduce it. Yet, there are moments in culture, Hall argues, in which the hegemony of the ruling classes can be challenged. Dick Heptich, who worked with Stuart Hall and is also a British cultural studies critic, very important one, argues that subcultures can be such sites of resistance. You have to read Heptich for today. For example, Punks argues Heptich resignify ordinary objects such as safety pins, dog collars, and even trash bags as they wear them. So that, for example, today we get sold these bleached and ripped items that were originally ripped and bleached by punks as an act of revolt against mainstream fashion and against the system. So my questions today are pretty simple. How does this process of resignification of daily objects occur, also as we've seen it in the movie The Filth and the Fury? Second, in what sense did the Sex Pistols challenge the dominant ideology, the common sense that circulates in the media, as Stuart Hall says? Identify at least two moments in the movie, in the documentary, in which it is evident that these common sense assumptions are challenged by the Sex Pistols. Thank you very much.